much is in that DTAC fund?
Can vary. Right now, each half, you're looking at approximately between both halves, about $900,000 can be collected. We share that with the prosecuting attorney's office, so each office would receive a portion, 5%, that gets charged on interest and penalties that are collected, and those funds then are set aside for each department. 2.5% for us and 2.5% for the prosecuting attorney's office.
But how much is in there now? Is there a DTAC fund?
Can you give them the balance?
The cash balance was $287,000.
As of today?
As of today.
Yes.
Again, Treasurer's DTAC fund is discretionary and specifically under the Treasurer's authority.
And you pay employees out of that fund?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Who do you pay out of that fund?
Who do we pay out of that fund? Mr. Daniels, Mr.
Mr.
Rosca,
Rosca.
you,
Yes, myself and Michael Doretta, and our part-time cashier, Cindy Collins.
So the full amount or just a portion?
Pardon?
They're full.
Yes, full
Full amount.
amounts, yes.
So, Commissioner Creighton, so again, that report is regardless of where they're paid from.
which report are you
But
referring to,
I don't
Chris?
see Jamie. Oh, there she is.
Yes,
I
she's
see.
Well, because it was terminated or this year, last year, if I recall. Oh,
They keep coming back.
No, as part of that budgeting process, I got a report from the
Yeah,
auditor's
yes,
office of all
which we're
county
gonna talk
employees all the
about.
way down through.
So, Treasurer, you've now allocated a 2% pay increase, but you've not reflected anywhere from the 28% increase down to the 4.4 increase that you've given this year. You gave a 28% raise, an 18%, a 13, 3 11s, 2 10s, 2
Does he have this
4s.
document, by the way?
No,
No.
they don't,
Can you-
no. We have run
Make
all the payroll
You need to
from the
make
first of
copies.
the year to the last of the year. You're not being singled out. I'm going to make that perfectly clear. Everyone has gone through this when they've come in. But it is our job to ask you, why would you give those types of raises when we, as a county, have encouraged everyone to give 2% pay increases?
2 of them were promotions.
Okay?
Which
Okay.
were,
Mr. Daniels and Ms. Sedmock?
Karen
Yes.
Sedmock
Sedmock and
and
Daniels.
Daniels.
I missed the
They were
first part that you said.
promotions.
Promotions?
Oh, promotion.
The others were due to restructuring in the office, picking up the responsibilities instead of hiring full-timers. We have done the work using part-timers, and also the existing full-timers have picked up those additional responsibilities, and we've returned back to the general fund for the past 3 years, approximately $189,000 in the general fund. Combined total between both funds, the DTAC fund and the general fund, would be about approximately $250,000, about 28.89% return back to those combined funds savings. At one point in time, the office had over 23 people, full-timers. We're now down to 12 full-timers and 9 part-time seasonal help.
And also those increases over and above the 2% were funded by DTAC funds
Okay.
in 2013.
And by the way, just so I understand, jump back to your regular schedule once, just the personnel, let's see, which is that?
Okay.
Funding and full-time equivalent summary. Help me get this page, I can't.
Sure.
I know what's happening here. Yeah. Employee history. I mean, the source doesn't have anybody's, what's happening, it's blank.
Well, that's
And
the
then you have
total.
21, 18, 14, but nothing in 12, 13, and 14. This is the one you just gave me?
You're talking about the prepaid real estate?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, that's a fund that no longer has any amounts in it.
So prepaid real estate no loger, so that had, okay, so I understand.
It had
that.
enough,
right.
it had enough
Two
money.
employees, 0 and 0, but now it has nobody.
Correct.
Nobody's being funded from that.
DTAC
fund.
is 7, 3, 5, 5, 5, 4.5, and 4.5, so that's accurate.
Mhm.
Correct.
Tax lien sales has one person left in it.
Well, that's actually 2 part-timers.
Part-timers.
Okay, 2 parts, okay. And then general fund has 11.5.
Yes.
What was the first one that was blank, by the way, that had 21 once upon a time? What
Well, that was just another total. That year, when I originally submitted this information, I was instructed I don't have to break it down by the funds, and then they said, no, we do. So the years that I had the information.
So that's just an old total that's not
Yes.
really
I think,
relevant to
yeah, it
anything.
may have been even
Okay.
erroneous number.
Right.
Just I'm trying to understand what's here.
If you notice, it's the exact same figure as the total at the bottom of the schedule.
How would a restructuring, when you have the same amount of employees, dictate the increases in salaries that you've given? I mean, I don't understand. They're here for 8 hours. So if you're telling me, actually you have more employees in 13 and 14 than you did in 12. So I don't think anybody got more responsibilities. In my mind, you got more people. And now they've got more money. So again, remember, we're dealing with taxpayers' dollars. I keep trying to take everybody back to that.
I understand your question. It's a fair question. I know when you look at those percentages increases that you were detailing earlier, the salary levels that we noticed in the treasurer's office hadn't really been addressed to reflect current levels that other departments were receiving. It was duties and responsibilities were shifted, and multiple tasks now were being handled by existing personnel, whereas before, full-timers were doing those jobs. They either retired or left the office. It became apparent that we were going to potentially start to see employee personnel leave the office, and it came to our attention that some of these salaries were very, very low in respect to other departments throughout the county and like positions.
Jamie, you said, I mean, just to make sure, so, and again, I'm looking back at this other list that you didn't have today, but now you have that we look at, and that's the one that has listed, so you said that everybody was funded, essentially, if they were in the general fund, they were funded with 2% pay raise in the general fund, but the excess, anything excess of the
Excess
2%
came out
was
of
paid from
DTAC.
DTAC.
Mhm.
So you can, and again, can you use, apparently you can, but I asked, can you use DTAC funds then to supplement the pay of a general fund employee? Or is that mixing the funds?
It depends on certain times of the year. The employees can be shifted to focus on delinquent tax assessment and collection areas. Same with tax liens. Tax lien is a program that hasn't been in place since 2008 in terms of a tax lien sale, but we still have to maintain the existing tax liens that are out there and maintain that program. That's what the VADAR contract is for. That keeps track of all the tax liens that are still out there and need to be monitored on a monthly basis.
And I guess, Chris, I would ask the question, or maybe if you have, going back to the other form, you have, 12 full-time and 10 part-time.
No.
So should there be 22 names on that list as opposed to like 15 or whatever? How comes the part-timers don't? You have, like Lem is a part-time person, is that correct?
Correct.
For example. And Glenna and Nathan, I think, are they part-timers?
Yeah.
Part-time ones and
What
intern.
happens to the other part-timers that should be on that report? Because he has 10 part-timers, but you only, this report only shows 3. I'm just curious as to what happens to the other ones.
On that one?
No, I'm talking about this one.
Again, if they came in or out during the year, there's
Oh,
some
okay.
other change that dropped them
Yeah,
off of
some of these
that.
folks are, again, seasonal help. They may not be back the next tax cycle. So our part-timers fluctuate. The levels of part-timers will fluctuate from year to year. And interns, depending on the number of interns that we have, Sometimes we have 2 interns, sometimes we only have 1, sometimes we have none.
But if they weren't there on pay one
And pay.
or pay 27, oh, they have to be there on both of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I was trying to look at people on the books for the full year.
And then,
We probably had a retirement in there too, Lane.
Yes. Elaine is,
and then your report that you do for us, I'm back to your budget document, which is the personnel schedule.
okay.
That's, again, everybody regardless of what fund they're in.
No,
No, or just, so it's just general fund.
This is all general
general
fund.
fund.
So this is
Yeah, that's
general
why,
fund.
yeah, they're not
Okay.
on here. And Alex, I would just say this to you, while I appreciate, I mean, I've been there as an official, while I appreciate the fact that you feel that some of your employees are underpaid, your comment about seeing what other departments make and some of them leave, I have to tell you, you have long-term employees here. And at the end of the day, I don't see any of these employees walking out. I just want to remind you that when that sales tax rolls around, you are going to have to justify to John Q. Public about the degree of these increases, because people around the county are not getting 28% pay increases. Many of them don't even get 2%. So we as commissioners are trying to hold the line with every official, every department. Again, you're not being singled out. We've got the whip out on about everybody that's in here with a few exceptions that have minded the rules. But again, you've gone well beyond the 2%. And it will be on your shoulders to justify that, not the county commissioners.
I appreciate your comments, Commissioner. Again, my situation's a little different, I think, than all other department heads. When I came in 2010, I had every intention to restructure the office accordingly. I never had the opportunity until really when I took office in 2013 in September for the first time as a elected official. So the roller coaster ride that went on in that office since 2010 on, that's finally settled when you folks did what you needed to do, and the Central Committee did exactly a very unique and historic thing. So at the time, we then went into a very tough budget. So we did what we needed to do in the Treasurer's Office. We did return funds back to the general fund. We have maintained a full-time level of employees at 12 for the past 3 years. And we've used part-timers to supplement to try again to run the office in its most efficient manner and also staff the department accordingly so that we can get the job done in the office. And I think the results that we have provided to the taxpayers is quite evident, especially in terms of the collection of the tax dollars and also going after delinquent tax assessment collections and returning back to the general fund in each of those years approximately $189,000 specifically to the general fund for their use. So the percentages that you are discussing, although they sound like a large amount of money has been given, 2 of those were promotions. The other amounts in all total was approximately $12,000. No, about $12,000 in benefits and payroll total for the office. So it does sound like percentages are large in the grand scheme of things. When you look at the delinquent tax collection numbers of $21.3 million and $20.49 million last year for the staff, and 4% of those amounts come back to the county, to the general fund. It's significant. Everything else goes out to all subdivisions.
And then in 2014, again, looking at the personal services summary, so you're saying that you'll give 2% raises in the general fund. Are you planning to give greater raises or supplement those with DTAC funds in 2014?
2%.
That's what
That's
was
what
provided.
we're budgeting for.
In the general fund, I know, but I mean, could you do the same thing next year, though, where you would supplement it, so some people would get a 4 or a 5 because you supplemented the 2% with 3% from the DTAC fund? Are you planning to do that in 2014 is the question? Are you planning to do the same thing you did in 2013 and
No.
2014?
No,
No.
not this, no.
Not to the same extent or
Not-
not at all?
You know, that is something in the DTAC fund, when we look at this and we look at performance, we have benchmarks that are set and performance evaluations are given throughout the year at this point in time now. Before they didn't even have job descriptions. They didn't have specific set responsibilities that I could determine when I came in. Now each department has been established. Each person has a job description, and in that particular fund, in the DTAC fund, goals are established. And that's what we're trying to target, and that's what we're trying to hit. In regards to an increase beyond 2%, the 2% pertains to the general fund and the DTAC fund. If their performance is exemplary and the total amount that we have that's provided for an increase, some folks may get an increase, some folks may not.
So you contemplate using DTAC funds in 2014, depending on job performance, that may exceed 2%? Yes?
It depends.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes. You're not saying no.
I'm not saying no.
Okay.
I'll take it in consideration. It depends on how each year they accomplish the goal.
And are you planning to supplement general fund employees with DTAC funds as you did in 2013, or is that a no?
In terms of an increase,
Yep. An employee is in the general fund and they're getting 2%.
if they're in the general
Are you
fund,
going to give them more than a 2% raise by supplementing that 2% with additional DTAC funds by saying, I moved them and they did DTAC work for, 2 weeks of the year, so therefore they're entitled to additional monies, in supplement of the 2%? Just, yes or no, are you going to do
I
that?
mean, an
Yeah.
employee at the end of the year is doing nothing but handling delinquent taxes. After
You understand my question, just, at this point in time, all I want you to do is answer the question before I have to ask it 5 more times. At this point, just cut the pain and answer the question.
depends on their performance.
So you're contemplating doing the same thing you did in 2013, yes?
It's possible.
Chris, why do we use the appropriated amount in the 2013 column rather than the actual amount?
When those budget documents went out, it was before the end of the year, so we did not have the actual 2013 expenses.
Because obviously when you compare, if, for example, everybody returned 13% of their 2013 appropriations, their actual amount, when you compare it to the 2014, is a much larger gap.
Mm-hmm.
Can we change that into the future? Again, I'm not talking about the treasurer, I'm talking about for everybody.
Sure.
It's somewhat it's somewhat misleading.
To the extent we start the budget process before the end of the year, the appropriation's all we're going to have. But as we get to this point, I now have those expenses to get to the board that I can provide you the actual 2013 expenses now that those books have been closed out in the last 2 weeks. But again, as we start the budget process before the end of the year, obviously those year-end numbers aren't final when they submit those initial budget documents.
Questions, anybody?
On the sending out of the bills, you said last year it was 60% out of the general fund, 40% out of DTAC.
68, I believe.
Okay, so 70 out. So you're asking us to increase our general fund contribution so you can build up the DTAC funds and potentially give pay raises. Obviously,
That's not true. That's a false statement.
which is?
We have, in the past, Richard?
Well, I'm glad that you demonstrated you can answer a question yes or no. Thank you.
Okay.
Without 50 or 100 or 250 words and avoiding the answer. So thank you for answering his directly.
All right, Commissioner. We'll answer your question in regards to general fund employees. They will not get beyond a 2%.
To include supplementing them with DTAC funds.
No, they will not be supplemented with DTAC funds.
That's all I was asking.
The DTAC fund is a discretionary fund in the Treasurer's office. It's no different than the real estate assessment fund. And you're right, Commissioner, you're absolutely 100% accurate about your statement. And Commissioner Burnaby, you are too, as are you. And I appreciate what you guys are doing in regards to addressing the financial condition of the county. And we all work together as a team. And I've got a team in place. And what I'm trying to do in my office is make sure I keep that team in place to continue to do the good work that we are doing there. As are you. You're doing your job in questioning my office and looking at my expenditures. And you're using a thorough scrutiny and putting the spotlight into the office, and that's welcome. It's actually needed in all offices. So I appreciate what you're doing. What we've tried to do is we've tried to address years in that office where employees have been either not receiving any appropriate increase or didn't get a single raise in the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But as people retired or left, the duties and responsibilities had to be picked up and that office had to move on. I came in, I looked at things, I reviewed each area and determined very quickly when looking at departmental pay structures, there were inequities.
And some of the part-timers that have come on board, when our office had extremely low personnel count, we were bare bones. If somebody called off sick or went on vacation, there was no one to cover that area. We were too thin. And we have people now in there to place trying to learn another one's job, so when they retire, we're not left with no experienced person in that field, in that area. They multitask, but again, as far as Commissioner Creighton's position where she sees a lot more numbers coming in, there was at one point where I did 3 different jobs in one day because I had 2 people out. That is too thin. And we need to get more bodies in there to cover when people go on vacation. They have a right to their vacation. It's healthy for an employee to take a vacation and take a leave of absence from the job and have somebody come in and oversee the work area. That is good business practice. We're trying to keep people from having their hands in as far as collecting cash and making out the bill all at the same time. We have to have a separation of duties, and to do that you need numbers. So those are also reasons why the numbers are increasing. So we need to get more bodies in there. We made the comment that phones are being addressed. That can only be done if I have people in there to answer the phones. And we've done our best to bring in part-time people who are experienced at what they do. They can be there when we need them, and when it's the middle of the summer and they want to take a day off, that's not a problem to running the office efficiently.
Anything else, anyone? Chris, anything? Brad?
Where are the temporary employees paid out of? I guess I missed that, but I don't know. Are they out of purchase services? Or are they out of payroll?
One is out of purchase services. The other part-timers are in the salaries and benefits.
Are in the salary?
Yes. And we mentioned that we were looking for a 90-10 with the funding. Payroll-wise, DTAC is carrying for 2014 38% of the payroll for the Treasurer's Office. 62% is carried by general fund, 38% is DTAC. And the history for DTAC general allocation has been in the 60-40 range.